Comic books are crazy enough as it is, but throwing a wedding into the mix and who knows what's going to happen. Well, usually the villains attack, the day is saved, vows are said, and then they live happily ever after. Although sometimes things do not necessarily go as planned. What's up, Nerd Squad? It's your boy Johnny Rogers from Inform Overload. I'm mostly over there, but I'm more than happy to help out on Top 10 Nerd from time to time. Also, with Dr. Doom's upcoming wedding that is guaranteed to make comic book history, we thought it would be apropos to count down the top 10 craziest superhero weddings. Coming in number 10, Dr. Doom and Victorious. Marvel has announced on their site that on May 12th there will be the most legendary wedding in Marvel comic book history, the wedding of Dr. Victor Von Doom that will apparently change the Fantastic Four's dynamic forever. The Bride of Doom storyline is said to be so good it will join the ranks of the greatest stories in Fantastic Four history. His bride-to-be is the Latvian hero known as Victorious, a bride that Doom has deemed worthy of his grandeur, but this marriage is said to also potentially divide Marvel's first family. Not only that, but he won't be the only Fantastic Four character that has their love life changed forever. From some of the images that Marvel has shown so far, it does appear that Doom and Reed Richards get involved in some type of crazy sword duel. Plus, they tease an image of Johnny Storm getting entangled with his ex-wife Lyja while Dr. Doom looks over them. Safe to say, even before we know the full extent of the events at this wedding, it already looks crazy. But before we move on to our next point, I need you guys to hit that like button to show some love to the channel. And with that out of the way, coming in at number 9, Black Panther and Storm. Back in 2006, comic book fans were presented with a big royal Marvel wedding between Black Panther and Storm, although critics accused the writers that they paired them together purely based on race instead of a prior romantic history. On top of that, the marriage itself was sort of overshadowed by the Civil War tie-in material. Regardless, it still felt like a poorly developed romance at first until they became closer over the years. Unfortunately, Marvel would soon use an Avengers vs. X-Men storyline to break up Storm and Black Panther, with Black Panther himself using his authority as Wakanda's high priest to annul their marriage after Namor's disastrous attack. Coming in number 8, Batman and Catwoman. There had been about 78 years of Batman's status quo until writer Tom King came in to shake things up. However, being unable to relate to how perfect Bruce Wayne was or how tactical and skilled Batman could be, what he did have though was a strong love for his wife, so he decided to lean into the relationship between Batman and Catwoman. Although with her being a criminal and Batman vowing to wage war on criminals, the fans already did not care for a potential marriage between these two. On top of that, many fans were confused by the Catwoman cover that featured a warning not to take in a single page unless you had already read the wedding issue. It suggested that clearly something had happened at the wedding, which sort of spoils that issue with the cover alone. It was a crazy attempt at something different and most fans just couldn't get on board with it. Speaking of things I can't get on board with, coming in at number 7, Aunt May and Dr. Octopus. Now this marriage is just straight up bizarre. I mean, come on. Aunt May and Dr. Octopus, you see, the real reason behind a storyline as crazy as this was due to an old marketing technique. In the good old days of comic book stores, they would often use a cover featuring a plot twist so bizarre that readers just couldn't help but pick it up to see what happens. It's truly the original clickbait. Most of the time, much like clickbait though, the actual content itself is less than entertaining. Of course, after Peter learns of this, he spends most of the issue trying to find out what Otto actually wanted with his Aunt May. Turns out this romance was all just a ploy to get control over her recent inheritance. And any storyline that makes Aunt May look like a cougar sugar mama is just wrong in my eyes. It is just such a goofy yet classic storyline from the Jerry Conway era that I had to include. Coming in number 6, Superman and Lois Lane. Back in 1996 in the wedding album number 1, we saw the marriage between Superman and Lois Lane, or rather Clark Kent and Lois Lane. After the pair fell in love, Clark did reveal to Lois that he was indeed the Kryptonian superhero that everyone had been talking about. Although the road to the altar was definitely a little crazy. Even their engagement was complicated because of Superman's death, and then by Lois breaking off the engagement and leaving to be a foreign correspondent in another country. DC would later bring these two back together to be married in a grand ceremony, plus they didn't even have to deal with any pesky villains until their honeymoon. Some people would argue that just marrying these two off though kind of kills the buzz and fun of their romance, but it's the comic book world, so literally anything could happen. Regardless, this superhero wedding was one for the books. Coming in number 5, Cyclops and Jean Grey. These two have perhaps one of the oldest and steadiest relationships in the X-Men franchise, but that still doesn't make them immune from being crazy. The massive wedding between Cyclops and Jean Grey had nearly every major member of the X-Men in attendance, although for their honeymoon, Scott and Jean would spend their time being dragged centuries into the future to raise baby Nathan Summers, who would only turn out to be the gun-toting cybernetic warrior known as Cable, which is pretty much proof positive that these two are just bad for each other. And many fans saw this wedding as a bad move for the franchise because this wedding encapsulated a lack of character growth, if you will. They may very well be an iconic couple, but at the end of the day, they are better off as separate characters. I mean, prove me wrong in the comment section. Nicely though, do it nicely. Coming in number 4, Deadpool and the Queen of Vampires. The comic book version of Deadpool is not usually the type of hero that we see associated with romance, let alone getting married, although his most successful relationship that did lead to a true wedding was when he met the Queen of the Vampires. This unholy marriage takes place in Deadpool number 27 and lasts for quite a long time despite his wife's tendency to have affairs with various supernatural creatures, which unfortunately does lead to her invading Manhattan, dumping Deadpool, and then running off with Dracula. Safe to say, certified crazy. Coming in number 3, Wonder Woman and Mr. Monster. Speaking of these old marketing techniques, here's another crazy and strange time from Wonder Woman number 155, where she intentionally tried to marry a guy called Mr. Monster. You see, what happened here is that Wonder Woman was tired and frustrated by the constant advances of less hideous men. However, in a crazy turn of events, it's Mr. Monster that actually leaves Wonder Woman at the altar. This happens because she discovers that he only becomes this gruesome beast whenever he does bad things. However, if he accomplishes good deeds, he transforms into a handsome prince. Wonder Woman's shock of it all actually leads him to call off the wedding, deciding that he's better off alone, which, as you can imagine, is just a massive hit to Wonder Woman's self-esteem, as it would be for anyone. If a guy named Mr. Monster leaves you, I mean, oof, oof. Coming in number 2, Donna Troy and Terry Long. I just have to say, considering the fact that this wedding happened in a book called Teen Titans, this is creepy. Rather than tying the knot with her fellow hero, Dick Grayson, Donna Troy decided to marry college professor Terry Long. Not only is Terry just a regular civilian, but he's also about 10 years older than his new wife. Again, Teen Titans. Although in a crazy turn of events, this marriage had to end to prevent horrible things from happening in the future. After getting married, we saw the Titans meet up with a future version of their team and battle this crazy villain that wanted to destroy the universe. Not just the world, the universe. The villain, though, turned out to be Donna and Terry's unborn child. As a result, she was forced to renounce her godhood and eventually end this marriage to prevent this villain from ever rising to power. Last but certainly not least, coming in at our number 1 spot, Green Arrow and Black Canary. This couple have long been on again, off again, and even though their love is passionate, Ollie is just too freewheeling and flaky to ever become a stable partner. Or so some people thought, until the pair finally agreed to get married and settle down. They even got their own issue titled Green Arrow and Black Canary Wedding Special number 1. It was pretty standard stuff. People gather, villains attack, heroes save the day, and then it's on to the vows. Or, again, so we thought. We got a crazy curveball in this issue when the two were on their honeymoon. Ollie went absolutely bonkers and tried to murder his new bride, so she was then forced to stab her husband with one of his arrows through his throat, ultimately killing him. But as the spin-off series Green Arrow Black Canary quickly revealed, Ollie was actually an imposter placed by Athena, and the real Ollie was rescued, and the two did end up getting a second chance at a wedding. But nonetheless, crazy. And either way, that has been the top 10 craziest superhero weddings. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to tap that like button if you enjoyed this video. For now, I've been your host, Johnny Rogers, and until next time, stay classy, YouTube.